honor of kings, which is what we are, leadership, right, is to search out a matter. So God equips, and it's the church's responsibility to uncover what God is trying to do. Okay, now who can uncover it? Well, obviously you can, because God gave you the talents. God has given you the skills. Okay, the goal of this class, step 2 in this process, is two-part understanding. First is to discover how our God-given personality is going to be revealed in this class, or revealed into people, okay? Second, I want to discover what God's purpose for my life is, okay? So you're not going to do that in a 45-minute class. I'll just give you just a forewarning. That's not going to happen. But hopefully we can kind of give insight to how our minds work, how our spirits work, and hopefully the end game is to plug that into the church. Does that make sense? So Psalms 139 and 14 says it like this. Psalms 139 and 14. It says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and I am wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. So we understand that God has made us, that God has equipped us. So how are we going to look at that today? Well, we are going to take a personality test, okay? Now, I'll give you forewarning. Before I took this, I sat down, I took this yesterday because obviously I had to teach on it. I've never really been a big fan of personality tests. I don't really like dissecting my mind. I don't like self-evaluating. I don't know why. That's just, but the Clay doesn't like it. I don't like looking at myself like that, Sister Cheek. I do enough of that when I pray. God help me. But it's a personality test, and I will say about this that differs from other ones is that I think this test does a very good insight to connecting to spiritual things. And so is it concrete? No. Can it be flawed? Yes. But hopefully in this, we're going to discover some things about ourselves. So in this personality test that we're going to take, there are 4 different categories, okay? And you can see that on the front page of your pamphlet. And they can put that up on the screen. Okay. There's going to be dominant, which is maybe alpha. You just walk into a room, you know who you are. They know who you are. That's a good point. You got influence, you got steady, and you got compliant. Now, one thing to note when you take this, and it's you have to understand that all of us are going to be different. Okay, there is no template for perfection. Okay, the minute you think there is, you probably got a wrong definition. Okay, and really that's because of a couple different reasons. One is we were all trained differently. Okay, we all have different backgrounds. We were all equipped with different things. Number 2, we've had different mentors. Okay, some of us have had preachers, some of us had parents, some of us had school teachers, whatever else. And 3, we all had life experiences. Okay, so there's not one thing that's going to meet all the criteria. Okay, but the strength of this and the strength of bringing once we introduce ourselves to people and once they introduce themselves to us is that we're going to get a plethora of abilities, skills, talents, whatever it may be. It's going to vary, right? So 2 Corinthians 5 and 17, it says like this, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creature. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things become new. So hopefully when we take this, we can take, okay, these are the things that I were, or that I was, or was, yeah. Used to be. I should have just said that. These are the things that we used to be, okay? And through the power of God, through His Spirit, through that process unfolds, well, obviously God's going to transform me into new things, okay? And you'll see there is a section in this, okay, you are this, but you can improve on this. But hopefully it brings light to, okay, if this is what I was, well, God can elevate that, and God can uplift, and God can instruct me to obviously fulfill His work. Does that make sense? So on this personality assessment, it's important to know some of us are going to be shy, you're going to be outgoing, you're going to be loud, you're going to be quiet. Some of you're really intelligent in some ways. You maybe not so smart in some ways. Some of you maybe really book smart, whatever else. There's not any like algebra questions on this or anything like that. But the important thing is the diversity represented in this is really what matters. And so what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through this, and I realize most of you may not be able to see this, but this page is the actual personality test, okay? It's the DISC. It's dominant, influence, steady, and compliant. And so how you're going to take this, and I've already done mine just kind of as a template, so I'm going to be really transparent on, you probably won't all have to show your scores, but I got mine here. So how you take this on number 1, it says dominant. Okay, and the very first line says, I am assertive, demanding, and decisive. Does everybody see that? So when I took this, and this is important, what I'm about to say here, don't take this on who you want to be. Okay, because that'd be real easy, because there are some things that I try to answer this on how I actually am. Now, are you going to be 100% correct? Obviously not, but do that as close as possible. So when it says, I am assertive, demanding, and decisive, when I took that, well, when I walk into a room, I'm not the most assertive individual, right? But at the same time, I'm not the most passive individual. I like to think that sometimes I'm somewhere caught in between. So I circled number 3, which is sometimes. And so I went through there and I answered them accordingly. Does that make sense? So we're going to go through there. We're going to answer this. We're going to take about, when I took it yesterday, it took me about 3 minutes. When you take this, your first answer is probably the one you need to go with. So you're not supposed to sit there, think about it. Don't think about all your life's decisions in one go. You don't have to break it down that hard, okay? Go ahead, Dem. No. So I'm about to start it here in a minute. Is that okay? No. I just read the first one just as a template, just an example of what to do. Does that make sense? I'm sorry if I was confusing there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through there. We're going to take it in just a moment. And then when you're done, so in the dominant section, I had 3 in my first one, 2, 3, 4, 4. I added all those up, and then I put that final number right there. And then you do that with each category. And then after that, I'll kind of explain what to do. Does that make sense? Everybody good? Now, this is not just a personality test, take time. This is actually going to go somewhere, okay? This is you introducing yourself to the church. So with that in mind, I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes, and when you're done, you can put your pencils down and look at the teacher. I'm just kidding. All right, go ahead. Yes, yeah, the dominant, influence, steady, and compliant. Okay, on your ready, set, go. No. Unless you're dominant, and then you really want to express that. Leighton just circled 5s across all of it. I thought we have some background music, don't we? No, you're good. Yeah, we have some Jeopardy theme music. I only know that because of, I don't know. I watched it at my mother-in-law's, right, Paul? Yeah. As soon as you're done, if you want to talk with somebody about your results next to you, you can. This is not static. actually put 4 on that. All right, everybody should be getting close. I'm not trying to put the pressure on you, but just go with your instinct. Yeah, yeah. So as soon as you're done, make sure to add them up and put them in the column next to it. Yes, sir. Yeah, no, no. So if it's like 4, 4, 4, it'd be 16 in total. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So while you're adding up everything, it's the total number. So if you had 4 fours, it'd be 16. Does that make sense? All right, everybody should be wrapping up. We'll give you about 30 more seconds. Sorry? What? I can't hear. Hurry up, really? All right, we got about 10 more seconds here. All right, is everybody finished? No? We'll just give it a little bit more. Again, you just kind of go with your gut instinct. Right. 4 and 1. Yeah, so if you do not take big risk, I read that as in, yeah, yeah, Liz, go ahead. All right, I pulled out the big guns for that one. All right, is everybody good? All right, I think we're going to grow on, okay? So now that you've completed that, now I'm going to share my results with you, and then we'll kind of go around and kind of maybe get some feedback on this. And then you already got that chart up there. So the most important thing about this, and really, it's not just take up time, the way God created you unlocks the door to what God wants to do through you, right? So now, does that mean that you're just locked into whatever this says? No, there's room for improvement, right? It's not a static environment, but it does kind of give you insight to how your self works. So when you plug into the church, you think, well, maybe I could really thrive here. Then that gives you confidence, which obviously leads to more success, okay? So on this, I was kind of a different kind of results. I think when I was reading over this, it said that most people tend to like lean one way or the other. But on dominant, I got 16. On influence, I got 12. SETI, I got 16. And compliant, I got 16. And so really, I was really just smack dab in the middle. And so how you're supposed to read this chart, okay? So dominant people are decisive and you're direct, okay? Compliant people are cautious and you're calculating. Yes, yeah, I'm sorry about that. So the higher you score, that means that's your highest category that you belong in. So if you scored a 20 on dominant and like a 10 on influence, well, you're more dominant than influential. Does that make sense? So on mine, I was pretty well even except on inspiring. So dominant people are decisive, direct. Cautious people, they're calculating. But if you'll notice, and it's how the chart is built, since I was dominant and I was cautious, but I was not really inspiring, it points that direction. It goes southwest. And so overall, I'm task-oriented and I'm reserved. Does that make sense, how it kind of broadens itself out? Which, honestly, that really does kind of fit me. I'm decisive what I need to be, but I'm very calculated. I'm reserved. That's just who I am. Now, am I the most inspirational person in the world? Inspirational person in the world? Not all the time, right? That's something I need to work on. So does that make sense on how to read that chart? Does everybody kind of break that down? Does anybody want to share their results on what they got? Okay. Okay. Sure, go ahead. Okay, while you're getting that figured out, anybody else want to share? Brother Marshall. Okay. 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 So that would make you outgoing and task oriented, right? Did I read that right? Right. So you take your top two and then you point it in that direction. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you're cautious but inspiring. Okay. Anybody else? Dad. Okay. Anybody else? Brother Paul. Right. Yeah. So you would take your highest number, and so the easiest way you yeah. So it kind of channels you that direction. Does that make sense what he's saying there? Yes. Is everybody getting there? Yeah. Am I just that bad with instructions? Right. Right. There you go. All right. We're not trying to get too bogged down in this. We'll just take a minute. We don't got to go into what? Yeah. Yeah. All right. I don't want to get too bogged down. Yeah. All right. So what we'll do, if you're still confused after this, Anna or myself can come around afterwards. So I don't want to get too bogged down, okay? Overall, as a consensus, does it kind of make sense? Okay, the point is, are you dominant, you influential, are you outgoing, are you task-oriented? That's really the goal of this, okay? And so if you're confused, we'll go over it. Really, in a smaller setting, which is what this is supposed to be taught in, it'd be one of those things you can slide the paper across the table and you can kind of go over it like that. When we're teaching it to like to 40 people or 30 people, you understand that may get confusing. And I understand people learn, or instructions may vary or whatever else. So if you'll notice in your pamphlet, and I'm not going to get bogged down in this, but there's a D, there's a DI, there's an I, there's an ID, and really it pairs it, and there's biblical examples on what they are, okay? So it kind of gives you a template of who you are, but that's just some more background information that we won't really cover. Okay, on your opportunities for personal growth page, you'll see that, if you don't mind flipping there. What it does is if you're a more dominant person, or if you're a more influential person, if you're a more steady person, a compliant person, it gives you areas to improve on, okay? So my lowest category was being influential. So that says talk less, listen more. Well, I would probably have to do the opposite. I probably need to be more vocal, and I probably need to express my opinion more. Now, some of you may not think that. Yeah. But according to this is what I ought to do, right? I ought to be a little bit more proactive in what I do. So that'll give you some, not necessarily some cons, but some things to work on. Okay, if you're extremely dominant, you probably need to listen to other people, right? Give them an opportunity to speak. If you're really influential, focus more on details and facts. Okay, you're getting too broad, right? If you're steady, you need to develop a little bit more flexibility, right? If you're just compliant, you probably need to be less critical of others' ideas and methods, okay? So it kind of gives you something else to work on, okay? So, again, this is going to tie in. But 1 Corinthians 12:1 says, "Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I don't want you to be ignorant." So this is ultimately what this is leading us to, okay? So now you understand, hopefully we made it to that point, what your personality trait is, okay? Are you just super outgoing? Are you task-oriented? Are you value-oriented? Whatever it may be. But now, how does that tie into spiritual gifts, okay? Now, it's important to note spiritual gifts are what they sound like. They are not natural aptitudes. They are not strengths, they are not abilities, they are not character traits, they aren't titles or positions, but gifts are given, okay? They are given by God, okay? And they are supposed to be utilized in that capacity, okay? And so what we're going to do now is discover our spiritual gifts. On your spiritual gift question sheet, it's the one with a long list of questions, okay? This one's going to take a little bit longer. And based on what we just did, I will be in prayer. We can rip off the page. So what you'll have to do is probably rip this off, because on your next sheet, you'll see your spiritual gift rating sheet. Okay? Is everybody following me so far? Am I going too fast? Okay. So how you're going to take this one, okay? So number 1 says, I like organizing services and events, okay? Again, it seems like I'm always kind of in the middle of the road. On mine, the chart is listed 1 is almost never, then it goes to number 5, almost always. And so I don't really like organizing events, but I don't really mind it either. I will if I have to, okay? So I put number 3 on that. Does that make sense? Is everybody following? I'll do one more, okay? Number 2, I enjoy starting new churches, okay? I probably shouldn't have picked that one because I am a preacher in this church, but I don't really enjoy starting something new. I just like editing it, so I put 2. Very rarely do I enjoy that, okay? Does that make sense? So we're going to go through there, and we're going to answer them 1 through 5, and in total, I think you have like 72 questions. It's not going to take that long, okay? Just remember, it's your gut feeling, okay? Does that make sense? Is everybody on the same page? Okay, we'll give you a couple minutes to do this, and then we'll break it down afterwards, and hopefully it all kind of comes to a head. You can cue your music. Something that I did not say is after the 3 columns, there is a total section, and you'll see that. I think it's kind of self explanatory, but you just add up your totals for that line, and then you'll put it in. So you can just do that as well. Again, it's the first thing that comes to your mind. Don't, it's not an algebra test. Just boom, 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 boom. I'm not trying to rush anybody, but once you get to the total part, if you don't mind, just go ahead and totaling all the way across. If you have any questions, we'll help you with that. You just total it by row. So, delegate would be to disperse, to organize responsibility. Is that good enough? Or, yeah. Assignment, yeah. No, Stephanie was the English major. Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah. When I said was or were, I felt the heat. I knew I messed up. You already done? So once you're done totaling, if you want to, the answer key should be directly behind that page. And again, if you're still taking it, I'm not talking to you. But once you're done totaling it, the answer key should be behind it. So your highest number, I would take your highest and I would take your lowest. So for example, one of my highest was D, was 14. So you can go and look at what that number is. And it'll tell you what your highest category was. And then likewise, your lowest, you can look at that. Well, I mean, not necessarily, because trying to fill all those in, I think it's going to be a huge time sink. So I would just do whichever ones pertain to you. I'm going to do my best to stop at 1 hour, so we're not going to bleed over, I promise. But hopefully all this kind of ties in at the end here, what we're trying to accomplish. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah. You just add it up by row. So once you're totaling everything, I would add, your highest. So I would see what that was, and your lowest. You can see what this test your best is and what your weakest is. No, you're good. All right, everybody. We got about 15 minutes left, and so yeah, I'm not trying to rush you at all, although I am, but I just want to make sure that I don't keep you guys forever. So All right, we're going to give about maybe 3 more minutes, 2 more minutes, something like that. So, kind of give you a timeline. Yeah. Yeah. All right. You should be in the totaling section now. If not, if you haven't made it that far, this is something you can complete afterwards. Obviously, we just got to put a time cap on it eventually, just so we can discuss some of the answers. So we're going to give maybe 1 or 2 minutes left, and then we're going to proceed, if that's okay. All right. So once you're done totaling, look up your highest and look up your lowest, and we'll share some of our results here in a minute. Does anybody need more time that you think you can accomplish it in the next like 30 seconds or something like that? Okay. Yeah. If I cap it, it's not because I'm being mean. I promise. Okay. I think we're getting ready to call it. Hopefully, I don't get stoned. All right. So, it'd be easy to say, why do all that work? Why all that? And, this is something that I want to stress. Obviously, when we're in a group of like 40 people, it'll be a little bit more chaotic, confusing. But the goal of this, first steps, and that'd be great if we had that many people going through at once. So don't take that out of the wrong context. But hopefully we can do this more on an individual setting where we can pass the paper across the table or whatever else. We can do this a little bit more personal, so there's a little bit more discussion. Just the nature of what we're trying to do there is just a little bit larger. So just to share some of our results. Now, again, I have the unfortunate pleasure of sharing all my results regardless. And so this just kind of gives you just an example. Now, what I noticed about this is I'm getting ready to read off my first one, and I told Dad purposely before this lesson because I wanted to see his reaction, and it's exactly what I thought it was. He kind of rolled his eyes like, that's not you at all. But my number one character trait or spiritual gift, believe it or not, was hospitality. Yeah, now can anybody believe Brother Clay's hospitable, right? And in some ways, you can look at that a couple of different ways. One, my wife is very, she's very big on that, so that may be a very big value that it just, maybe I answered it incorrectly. But on the other hand, and I'm not just trying to give myself props, but I am trying to be transparent. I don't do good in large settings, but I do really care about individuals. And so again, I'm just using this as an example, so it's not like, oh, Brother Clay's the man up here. I'm not trying to say that at all. But usually if somebody's gone, if I try to keep in contact with people through text messages. Hey, is everything going okay? If you guys are over, we're going to try to feed you, whatever else. And so even though I may not do it to the best of times, I can see where I really care about that. And on a broad conceptual view, I really care about the processes of our church. Why? Because I want people to feel welcomed, right? I care about what that looks like when they enter the door, how they look at things, how are they approaching things. I care about that whole process. So in some ways, that could make a lot of sense. My other three, and I'm just doing three just because they were tied. My first one was 15. My other three were 14. They were discernment, knowledge, and wisdom. Okay, so, to me, that kind of makes sense. Now, my lowest one, and again, as a preacher, it's almost hard to get up here and tell you what you just bombed, right? But my lowest one was tongues, right? Brother Clay doesn't really give tongues an interpretation a lot. Now, it may happen, but you better believe it. If I do, it's from God, okay? My second worst one was craftsmanship, okay? I'm not a builder, okay? Now, I can help. And my third one, again, I'm brutally honest, my third one I'm not very good at is intercession, okay? So what does this tell me? Okay, I'm good at some things. I'm not good at some other things. Now, there's spiritual gifts. Does that mean God cannot equip me in the future? Does that mean God cannot equip you in the future? Obviously not. This is not meant to be static. It's just to give you insight to maybe where you are right now and where you can thrive and where you can also improve. So that being said, does anybody want to share their results? Their top and their worst? Brother Matt, thank you for volunteering. Everybody cares, buddy. Awesome. Okay. All right. Brother Joe, do you mind? What was it? Giving. Okay. Hey, that's okay. We're all being, I was brutally transparent, right? Yeah. It almost challenges you, like, say what? You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Okay. Sister Stephanie. Okay. Okay. Anybody else just want to volunteer theirs? Go ahead, Pastor. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Awesome. Anybody else want to volunteer their results before we move on? Sister Cheat. Well, Sister Cheek, I always knew you and me were alike. Okay. So putting it all together, okay, Hebrews 12, verse 1 through 2, and if you don't mind flipping to that very last page, okay. It says, therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, we're surrounded by each other. We're surrounded by different personalities, task, value. Some people are good at prayer. Some people are good at administration. Some people are wise, whatever it may be. Let us lay aside every weight and sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking at Jesus and the author and the finisher of our faith. Okay? So what is my personality type and my leadership style? So on that first blank is going to be your dominant personality trait, okay? Whether it was dominant, influence, steady, compliant on that first blank. Does everybody see that? And then, are you people or are you task oriented? So that's why I try to let us, read that. So again, if you're inspiring or you're supportive, well, you're going to be people, right? If you're dominant or you're cautious or compliant, forgive me, you're going to be task oriented. So that's how you read that chart. I know we had some problems with that earlier, but so then you fill out those first two blanks. Okay, so hopefully all of it's kind of tying together. So that should just be a plug and chug there. Okay, as soon as you get done filling that in, it says, what are two primary spiritual gifts or natural abilities do I have? So on this, with me, I put hospitality and I put discernment, okay, because those were some of my two highest, okay? So on the first two blanks, you put your personality trait, task or value oriented, etc. And then on the next line, you put your one of your highest or your very highest and then your second highest. And I'll give everybody a chance to kind of get caught up, and then we'll go from there. On which one, Leighton? Yeah. So I'm about to get to that. Yeah. No, you're okay. Okay, so on the third line, once you get those first two lines filled out, this is where it's really your opinion. So there's not an answer key for this. And so what I mean by that, so where it says what are two primary spiritual gifts, well, mine was hospitality and discernment. So in my mind, and again, this is going to be different for everybody, okay? We don't have an answer key. But in my mind, those two, I'm very value-driven, okay? Being hospitable, well, I care about results. I care about people feeling welcomed, right? Discernment, well, I care about what the true intent of things are. So for me, that's value-driven, right? I'm very ROI-ish, return on investment. Okay, I want to capitalize on that. So something that you're passionate about, you can put in those two lines. So you're value-driven, you're merciful, you're compassionate, you want to evangelize. Really, that's going to be what you can characterize that as. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Deb. There you go. Something like that. Okay. Encouraging and developing people. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So where it says, what two areas am I experiencing and most passionate about? Well, number one was caring and developing people. Like for me, it was being value driven, seeing results, right? And then a second one as well. Building things, whatever. It's really where you characterize it. Go ahead. Yeah. So building things. And we're almost done. We only got one more line item, and we're almost right at 4 o'clock. So I did really good on timing. Yeah, there you go. I just had to cut it off. Okay, is everybody kind of there? So this is where this lesson will end, okay, on this very last line. It says, based on the answers, with what type of team or small group should I connect with, okay? So you're probably not going to know that answer right now. But you take, okay, am I value? Am I people-oriented? Am I task-oriented? Am I really evangelistic? Am I hospitable towards people? Am I merciful? Am I good at interceding? And you take all of this, and then eventually you plug into somewhere in the church, which is ultimately where we're going in lesson 4, okay? And so if you'll notice on your very last 2 pages, we've included some teams that are going to be in this church, okay? Whether it's ministration, whether it's events, whether it's baptism, youth Sunday school, greeters, social media team, Spanish translating, technical production. Now, do we have one column that just says, hey, we're going to put really kind people in here? No, that's going to be up to your discernment. Hey, I'd probably fit in well here. Now, for clarification, just because you feel like you may fit in somewhere doesn't mean necessarily that you may be plugged in right there. Just because we are a smaller church, so we have to fill needs, right? Do I just feel called to cut grass? No, but I'm going to help cut grass because we need help, right? So there is some of that helping filling needs. But that very last line is going to be really ultimately you. What do you feel gifted in? What do you feel led to? What do you feel responsible to? Okay? Does that make sense? Kind of where we're at? So you don't have to answer that question right now, but in essence, when we teach this, in lesson 1, we introduce them to the church. Okay, we introduce them to who we are. Step 2 is all about you. Okay, and it's about finding where you may feel like your ability to plug in at, and then hopefully we can give people this sheet at the very end and say, hey, we have all these different ministries available, and we need you because we can't do this on our own. Now, does it mean you're locked into one place? It doesn't. God can grow and God can develop and God can give different gifts, but we can plug and we can pray and we can see where God leads us. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Deb. Yeah. Again, this is an onboarding process. So if you can look at the church like it's a freight train, it's just going throughout life. Well, if somebody just tries to grab a hold of it, it's going to rip their arm off, right? But if we have an onboarding process to get on this train, we can serve God together. Does that mean that they can do everything all at one time? It does not, right? There are steps to leadership and all that above, and I think we all understand that. But the goal of this, and again, this will be taught probably in smaller settings. We can pass this along the table. We can figure out how people want to connect. Okay. Now, something I also want to make note: there are typos in this curriculum. We are working on getting that fixed. Okay. So if you see it, understand that it's just an evolving process, and our final project is going to be a lot better. Okay. We're going to add graphics and different things to it, but hopefully that was beneficial. Again, we introduce them to the church, and then they introduce us or themselves to the church. We kind of figure out where they can be involved. Go ahead. So this is entitled First Steps for a reason. I'm going to close on this. This is first steps. This is just the onboarding process. Once people are kind of involved and they're one more, well, then obviously we'll have next steps. We'll have discipleship. We'll have Bible studies, etc. So there are tiers to this. Not that anybody's holier than thou, but there's just a natural learning process. You have to learn algebra before you can learn algebra 2 and calculus, etc. So God bless you. That's all I have to say, Dad, if you want to close it.
Because we're doing this in mass, we're doing this, as a large group. I don't want you to go, okay, that was the process and walk out of here. I genuinely want you praying, looking at the results here, and you looking for a place that this isn't just for new people to walk in the door. That is to, again, revitalize, help all of us to find a place back into the church doing things. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes that same village to create a community. We're trying to create community in the church when people come. They want to belong. They want to engage. They want to, and so we're looking for everybody to find a place to get involved in the church. Again, if there's 100 people in the church, there's 200 jobs. It don't mean that You know, when I say jobs, it's not jobs. This is not job. This is, I get to do something for the King. I get to get involved in my calling. God's calling me to do something in the church. And so it's just helping us find, again, an onboarding process. I loved how he relayed that to us. And so, again, you know, if you're not quite done with all this, go back. Look at the different definitions. You know, go back and kind of review it. Pray about this week, if you would do that. Take it home, pray about it, and ask God, God, truly help me. And then next week when we come back, we're going to the, it won't be next week, I'm sorry. Next week, because if I'm having a procedure, I've asked them to table first steps for a week and allow me to heal. I hope that's okay with everybody. And so we will come back 2 weeks from now, and we will do step number 3. Brother Clayton will be teaching it. And then we will come back for the last one, number 4, and Sister Anna will be heading that up, and we'll be getting you some more information. So what's everybody think about first steps to this point? You guys see how it's going to work when people walk in? Amen. So this is what we're trying to do. Again, I want to say I'm glad that all of our people are here. Amen. Everybody's here. We're glad to have you.